Hurricane Harvey devastates South Texas, leaving thousands scrambling for shelter. But could it happen here in New England? Our City News talked to city officials to see what's being done to make sure we're prepared in case the big one hits. And now, the latest news, sports, and weather with Stephanie Allison and the entire Our City News team.
Welcome to Our City News. I'm Stephanie Allison. Hurricane season starts off with a bang in Texas, but first, a 2-alarm fire ravages a house on Weymouth Street in the city, bringing aid from other cities to help extinguish the blaze. Glenn Fossa has the story. Thanks, Glenn. Whose volunteers help out in times of disaster as a way of giving back to the community. Glenn?
Our City News covering a house fire at 7 Weymouth Street. This occurring just yesterday early evening, a 2-alarm fire where Leominster firefighters were called in because this very fire hydrant failed just minutes into the firefighting effort by Fitchburg Fire Department. This 7 Weymouth Street building currently under receivership of a bank. We don't believe that bank is local, and we're still waiting for investigators to tell us the cause and origin of this fire. Right now, not sure if it's suspicious or not, but they will. The experts will tell us that. Glenn Foster reporting from the scene, Our City News.
City News on FATV.
Welcome to Inside Fitchburg. I'm your host, Alex Cardinale. Inside Fitchburg is pretty much a showcase of that work that folks are doing. A lot of conversation is really being steered in a really positive direction, and more is being found out, I feel, now, which is really exciting stuff. Hey, we're back. I didn't have a microphone on. Live TV, everybody. I think you're one of the examples of what the city really needs, and that's, young, energetic folks investing. You guys look great for 150. Do what you love and you don't work a day in your life. Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton. If you haven't, James Lipton is an old guy with a beard. And what Fitchburg is a lot of really good people working toward a better future for the city.
Texas continues with the rescue and recovery operations as thousands are left homeless in a city devastated by Harvey. As public safety officials scramble to keep up with the flow of calls from residents of the Houston area, we talked with local officials to see what was being done to make sure our city was prepared for hurricane season. On the phone today, Chris Bessie from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Headquarters in Framingham. Chris, can you tell us how MEMA is prepared to help out with times of emergencies here in Massachusetts?
So here at the state level, MEMA leads a group of our partners of different state agencies, and we have what we call the state's comprehensive emergency management plan. And what that is the plan of how the state will respond to different types of disasters and emergencies. And more importantly, rather than focus on any one type of emergency, it's what we call all hazards. So that is, it gives us tools and resources and structure that we can use to respond in any different scenario. So whether we're talking about a blizzard in the winter, a hurricane in the summer, a tornado, a power outage, a man-made event, we can apply all those resources and plans that we have in place to those situations.
We know that in the past, the governor has been very responsive to weather emergencies here in the state. What future plans would we implement knowing the lessons learned by events like Harvey and others across the country?
Governor and public safety officials is always very focused, and their main mission is to make sure the residents of the state are safe. So in terms of, applying lessons specifically from Houston, in this storm, Harvey, it's probably even a little too early for that. But, that being said, looking back at storms not only that we've seen here in Massachusetts of different kinds, but also, as we look back at other storms, Hurricane Sandy in 2012, it's always something that public safety officials and emergency managers are looking at to see, how would our plans hold up? What things do we need to do differently? One of the things, for example, that came out even after Hurricane Sandy in 2012, which obviously impacted New York and New Jersey to our south a little bit more than us, was the development of a state's hurricane evacuation zone. So even though that's not as relevant for the Fitchburg residents, for many people in the state along coastal areas, we have now pre-designated hurricane evacuation zones for areas that may flood from storm surge flooding. So that's one specific example of something that came out of a past event.
Citizens may not know the complexities or the amount of expertise required for those responding to these kind of events. Could you tell us a little bit about how the process works to bring help to area communities during these times of disasters?
Sure. So and what we do at the state level is really support the activities and actions of officials at the local level. So when a disaster or emergency is threatening the state or is happening, our role at MEMA is largely a support role in support of the different needs of the communities out there. So if, like going back even to the 2008 ice storm that we had, Fitchburg and many communities in the central and western parts of the state were impacted by that. So our role is really a coordination role, more than anything else. If I could describe what we do in one word, it's that coordination. So bringing together our state-level partners, state police, Mass DOT, Red Cross, public health, making sure they're all here around the table ready to respond to the disaster, and working with the impacted communities to try to meet their needs.
Thank you, Chris. Glenn Fossa got a chance to talk to our own emergency management director right here in Fitchburg about how they have prepared in case of disaster strikes us here. Thanks, Glenn. Not only do our city agencies prepare, but also organizations like the Salvation Army, whose volunteers help out in times of disaster as a way of giving back to the community. Glenn?
It really does start at the local level. With me, Lieutenant Richie Liberatore from the Fitchburg Fire Department. Lieutenant, this is in the minds of folks. How are we prepared? How does Fitchburg respond? You've been at this job a long, long time, and it's great to have you today. So just a real overview of Fitchburg's response and how we prepare like Houston would have to.
Realizing the city's not immune to storms, hurricanes, tornadoes, we took the aggressive approach. We got a team of volunteers backed by the city to form a regional and a city-run shelter. The volunteers would pick up this trailer, take it to the shelter, set up at least 500 beds. That's the max that we can set up at the shelter. Pillows, beds, walkers, everything that you would want for immediate care to the people of the city who need shelter. Food accessories would come in through the school department. The volunteers, we bank on the city people who are familiar with rescue and aid in critical times becomes very valuable to us. But we have a core of volunteers in the city, Fitchburg CERT team, and I can't say enough for those guys. And, it's a snap. We're pulling the trailer in, they're setting up. It gets a little chaos, but over the period of time, because we don't practice this, nor do we want to practice it, but we're ready. And we feel comfortable that if something severely happened to the city, we can do it.
CERT teams, of course, got re-energized after the disaster in New York in 2001. Community Emergency Response Team, CERT, and folks can join CERT by coming to you.
Absolutely. If you call the Emergency Management Office at the Central Fire Station headquarters, ask to speak to me, there's a form that we'll ask you to fill out, And volunteering is hard for people to make that commitment. But, you know, if you really feel the need, you want to contribute to your benefiting the city, your family. I mean, it's just not, you know, strangers. It's, you know, volunteers assisting other volunteers and their own family members. See me, stop in, love to talk to you, show you around, have you speak to the other volunteers who have been doing it for quite a while. You know, they can tell you their flavor of why they do it, how they do it, and the enjoyment they get out of it.
Lastly, of course, some folks may not necessarily be aware there is a certain amount of lag time to being activated to respond to a would-be concern, or would-be tragedy like that in Houston. What we learned from Katrina was that there is always that lag time, and sometimes it's best to have a plan at home as your first response to that incident.
Most people aren't prepared. I mean, you can see it when we get simple snowstorms. They're scrambling to the grocery stores, don't have water, don't have food, don't have necessary things they need on a daily basis. If any message I can send out to the community is, you know, you've got to have your ducks in a row. You've got to have food stored away, fresh water, batteries for a radio, because if you lose your power, you're not going to have communications. Some people can afford a generator, some don't. Basic necessities, just to survive, not for a week, well, at least 2 or 3 days, is very valuable for you, family, young children, elderly people, keeping in contact with family members, letting them know where you are, because when disaster strikes, you really want to know where your family members are. And it's not being a pain to question where your kids are going or where your husband or wife are going. It's just that if tragedy hits, you want to know about where they are and where you're going to meet up and how you're going to bring the family fold back together. That's pretty vital.
Fire Lieutenant Richie Liberatore right here at Fitchburg Fire Department headquarters responding to our questions about disaster preparedness. And now back to Our City News. And of course, we're talking about responses to disasters and those kinds of events that happened in Houston, could happen here. And across the country, we are well aware of the Salvation Army. So many volunteers and, of course, the professionals behind the scene, envoy in the Salvation Army, Lynette Valentine. Lynette, great to see you today. Thanks for taking a little time. It's about people and volunteers.
Correct. Actually, there's a lot of people calling. The phones have been ringing off the hook. What can we do? That's a normal response from a community when there is a disaster. However, I've created a stat that's going to tell you what the Salvation Army is doing. We have deployed. Our Southern Territory is down there taking care of feeding people. We have 42 mobile units, feeding about 1,500 people on each mobile unit. What are we doing here? Right now, we are holding back on donations and drives until we can assess it and the key opponents are done. And then at a later date, we can let the community know what they can do for items and purchasing things or transporting it down there. So basically, I have addresses, phone numbers where you can mail checks. Just indicate on the memo that it is for Hurricane Harvey. Also, we can let them know that they can send money through your cell phone. It's all on the paperwork that we're going to put in the paper, and I'll be on the radio, and I'm going to be hanging flyers up around town. So if you have any questions, of course, you can call me at the Salvation Army, 978-342-3300, extension 105.
Now, Lynette, we have to really reinforce that part of a good response is a coordinated response. Mm-hmm. And as much as all of us as human beings want to respond, want to do something, want to care, it's extremely important to coordinate with agencies like yours to ensure that foodstuffs will be good enough to distribute if there's a delay, exactly. Good enough to accept the help properly and through coordinated channels.
Correct. We have to make sure things are done in compliance. That's very important. Again, I'm saying that people want to help, but we have to assess the situation. We have to know what the need is. If we start sending things down there and it's not used, it's storage. Think about it's a disaster. We're trying to get people out, clean it up, and assess them. So an abundance of things is just going to get in the way and it's not going to get used. So basically right now money is what they're looking for, that they can assess the issue and we can take care of things. MEMA's working on it. Once we have an area where donations can be made, we will be notifying through public channel.
We're going to scroll or put up the phone number again for our viewers at Our City News. Very important, once again, contact you folks, know what the response should be so that their time and effort, materials going into a response effort are not wasted.
Correct. And that's the most important thing, because that money can be used to get exactly what the people there need. They need shelter, they need transportation, produce, things like that on the Southern Territory. I mean, we're up east, so it's really, really important for us to stay on top of this and getting donations on just what's needed.
Yeah. Sometimes the road of good intentions is not always what's needed. Right. Very important to coordinate. Thank you so much, Lynette, for sharing some time with our City News. And now back to you, Stephanie. At the foundation of responses to disasters, of course, are the volunteers, Debbie Davey, Deborah Anderjar, and Fred Tucker. Great to see all you guys today. You represent sort of a cross-section. Debbie, you've been here a year. Deborah, you've been 20 years volunteering with the Salvation Army. And Fred, just about?
About 9 months.
About 9 months, so great cross-section. Debbie, great to see you today. Debbie Davey, tell us what your role is here at the Salvation Army.
I volunteer here. One of the things that my fiance and I did was help in the Lynn fire. We went there and made sure that everyone had the supplies. We also go to fires in Fitchburg when they occur.
Yeah. Debbie Anderjar, of course, you've got 20 years with the Salvation Army. This is incredible. Tell us a little bit about your experience and how it helps when responding.
Well, because we get to work closely with the families and we get to see what their needs are, it helps when there is crisis. We already know what most of the needs are. And, of course, each different situation brings different needs, but we kind of have a list of more or less what we might have available that we can assist with or what we have to go out and get. And so 20 years, I've kind of seen it all. Fires, floods, all kinds of different things. So.
Fred Tucker, we saw you stocking the badly needed for resupply in the food pantry. Yes. Tell us what joy you get from that.
Well, I feel like Salvation Army is a good place to work for. I have plenty of time on my hands, so I feel like I can give back, and Salvation Army is a good place to give back to.
Yeah. It's the people behind the scenes that make it all worthwhile and all possible. Right here at the Salvation Army on Water Street, our City News continues. Rounding out those who respond to disasters with me, Fitchburg Police Chief Ernest Martineau. Chief, good to see you today. Glad you could take some time just to tell us really the police role in it and reiterate some of those very important messages to those citizens who could be affected or volunteer their time or resources to a potential disaster.
Sure. First of all, my thoughts and prayers out to the entire Houston region for what they're experiencing right now. It's just catastrophic what's happening down there, and just really a lot of thoughts going out to them. From a police perspective, you got to realize the police department, 90% of the time, we're first on scene. We're a 24/7 operation, and our men and women are out there protecting the community around the clock. And when disaster strikes, we're usually the first on scene. So our job in the initial point is to preserve life and preserve property, and to triage and scope out the situation and make determination what comes next. It's after that we start collaborating with all our other partners, such as the fire department, EMS, local services, religious groups, Salvation Army. There's a million different organizations out there. We try to collaborate after the disaster strikes. And that's what they're going through exactly now down in the Houston area. We practice for that quite frequently here in Massachusetts under a system called ICS, Incident Command Structure, where many multi-agencies get together and we plan just for disasters that could potentially strike your area. And the key is to have open communication and collaboration amongst the different groups, not just police, but police, fire, and anybody that could help the situation. We're seeing that come true down in Houston right now, where many people are trying to step up to their plate and help. Something we learned many years ago during 9/11 was something called self-deployment, which can initially sound like a good idea, but can hinder the operation. So, anybody that's looking to help out, reach out to the professionals, see what they can do, see what you can do to help, and do it in a constructive manner. The one thing that I said, when disaster strikes in this country, we really come together. Politics are put aside and humanity comes first, and that's what we're seeing in the Houston area.
Yeah. Fitchburg Police Chief Ernie Martineau, thank you so much. Our City News continues.
Thank you.
We'll be right back with more from Our City News on FATV.
Join us at Great Wolf Lodge in Fitchburg on Friday, September 8th for the 3rd annual Mission Possible fundraiser, supporting the programs at Veteran Homestead. Are you or do you know a veteran or active service member? Here's a great opportunity to give back to those who've given so much for us. Enjoy a night out for fun with family and friends, food and drinks, live and silent auction items, and more. 90% of proceeds raised go directly to support our veteran neighbors in need. To install a new heating unit in one of the homes at our Northeast Veteran Training and Rehabilitation Center, replacing flooring at the Armistice Homestead in Leominster, and supply furniture to our Veteran Support Facility in Puerto Rico. Mark the date on your calendar and visit our website for complete details. Come walk the purple carpet on September 8th from 5 to 9 p.m. at Great Wolf Lodge in Fitchburg. We look forward to seeing you there.
You're watching Our City News on FATV.
And ice cream and apples were the hot topic up at Hollis Hills Farm, where Kelly Johnson had a chance to talk to the owner, Jim Latanzi. Kelly?
I'm Kelly Johnson with Our City News here at Hollis Hills Farm, located on Marshall Road. Going to talk with the owner, Jim Latanzi, about what's coming up this fall season. Already, we've got some new things, new exciting things for families. So when families want to come up, what can we expect?
Well, we're getting right into our apple season at this point. We started just this past weekend with our Paula Red variety. They're a Macintosh relatives, and so we've got you pick apples. We will have pumpkins, hay rides. A new addition here for the farm this year is we have Gifford's ice cream. It's made in Maine. It's fantastic. I don't know if you've tried it yourself. I saw Glenn walking around with some, but it's a high butterfat content ice cream. It's very delicious. So the ice cream is something new for us, and then we also added you-cut flowers. My mother always had flower gardens, and so I've always thought that would be fun. And I've got farmer friends, and they are into flowers. I said, you know what, let's try it this year. So we started off, we've got zinnias, we've got gladiolas, and we've got sunflowers, because who doesn't like sunflowers? So lots of new things this year. It's fun and exciting time because it's our season. You know, we have lots of things we do at the farm, but this is the pinnacle of us, of our years. So, yeah.
That's great. So when can families come up to see you guys?
So the farm is open Tuesday through Sunday. We are closed on Mondays. We got to rest and reset, and then we hit the go button again. But we're open Tuesdays through Sundays from 10 to 8 p.m. We serve ice cream till 8 now. So.
That's very good. And, of course, you have your meats, your freezers, your pies, everything, the honeys.
All honeys, maple syrup, all the standard stuff that we've had is still here, still in full swing. But, again, we do have new additions, so that's the fun part. You come have an ice cream cone and enjoy the view. That's our biggest thing this year, I think, was ice cream. So.
Our little gem here in Fitchburg. So thank you very much for this interview. Not the first time we've been here, and definitely not the last time.
Yeah, thank you. We always appreciate you coming up because you do such a good job, promoting the city and all the fun stuff going on, and we're happy to be part of it. It's a key role for us as the farm here is being part of the city, and we're very proud of that. So this apple we're holding here in the tree that's behind us is a Marshall Macintosh. Marshall Mac was actually developed here in Fitchburg at this farm, at the old Marshall farm, by brothers George and Alfred Marshall. The apple itself is an early coloring Macintosh. It colors somewhere between 7 and 10 days earlier than your standard variety of a Macintosh. And of course, in the apple business or in any business, you know, the early bird gets the worm. So this apple was very well received, as there are hundreds of varieties of apples, but this one in particular, the Marshall McIntosh, was grown throughout, I'd say, central Massachusetts, but even farther than that. So big orchard country has a lot of Marshall Macs, and it was developed right here at the farm.
Well, thank you very much, Jim, for your time. I am Kelly Johnson with Our City News.
Take a trip over to the Fitchburg Senior Center on September 7th for their open house. Glenn Fossa spoke with Director Joan Goodwin about what we can expect from this event. Glenn?
Stephanie, Our City News travels over to the Senior Center right here with me, Joan Goodwin. Some exciting things coming up for September the 7th, 3 to 6 p.m. You can meet the volunteers, take a tour, and there's even a miniature vintage shoe collection. Joan, tell us more about what's going to go on.
September is National Senior Center Month. Every year we honor this month, honoring our senior center and all of the things we do for seniors in our community. It's a great afternoon. We have tours of the building. We also have the facilitators who teach some of the classes that we have here. They'll be on hand to show people exactly what they do. We have a great band coming, the Dixie Hut 4. They've never been here before, so I'm excited about that. And the other thing is I always like to do a display or something of Fitchburg history. So this year I'm going to be showcasing the Goodwin family miniature shoe collection. So it'll be fun. We'll have a lot going on.
Someone might ask, what is a miniature shoe collection?
Well, the Goodwin family, of course, owned Goodwin Shoe Store, and the original owner's wife, Nellie Goodwin, collected miniature shoes. So when their friends and family traveled all over the world, they would always bring back a shoe from where they traveled. And many years ago, the Goodwin family uncovered the collection, and I think they were going to get rid of it. So I opted to take it, and I've really treasured it. And, you know, every couple of years I like to put it out on display. So it'll be very interesting. And we're talking very tiny shoes to porcelain shoes to shoes from Alaska and all over the world. So it'll be fun.
Truly amazing. And, of course, this is September 7th, 3 to 6 p.m.
Yes. Yep. I look forward to it, and I hope people come down. You know, I don't think people realize what actually goes on here. Actually, behind me, we have our co-ed cribbage group. It got started by Dick Doucette and his wife. Dick is a member of the Tired Men's Club, and they formulated this little group of 10 people, and now it's turned into between 24 and 30 people that come on Tuesdays. So we have a lot going on and a lot of life enrichment programs. Also, too, I do want to mention September 14th, the Mayor's Community Resource Fair will be down here at the Senior Center. Sue Christensen, Joan David, and people back at 166 Boulder have put a lot of work into that, so that'll be a great afternoon to come down and look at the resources available for people in Fitchburg.
Keeping our senior viewers of Our City News in mind, right here on Wallace Avenue at the Senior Center. Stephanie?
Thanks, Glenn. This week on FATV. Tuesday at 7 p.m., Barbara and You with guests from My Care Initiative. Wednesday at 7 p.m., Inside Fitchburg with Alexandra Cardinale. Friday at 7 p.m., Fitchburg High versus St. Bernard's High School football game. Tuesday at 6 p.m. on our government channel, the City Council meeting live. For more FATV programming, visit fatv.org. This week's episode is brought to you by KCMC Management, our local Dunkin' Donuts. If you have a story you'd like us to share, email us at ourcitynewsfitchburg@gmail.com. For all of us here at Our City News and FATV, have a wonderful day.